minutes, we're going to hold off and let some more colleagues join us before we start. Good morning, everyone. We're still getting quite a few people jumping on, so we'll just wait one more minute. Good morning, good morning. They're still coming on. I'll start very soon though. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for hopping on. We still have some colleagues joining us, but I am going to be moderating today's webinar. We've got an exciting webinar today, some awesome guests. So today we're going to be talking about harnessing social media and survey text mining for COVID-19 response. And today is Tech Thursday, so some really interesting case studies we're going to be talking about today, some evidence from Ecuador, Egypt, and Lebanon. Our speakers today are Daniel Costa. He's one of our own at CSMT. He's our senior economist. And then we have Dr. Mohammed Erman. He's a scientist at the Qatar Computing Research Institute. And so they're going to be talking with us today. Just a quick reminder, we are going to have a Q&A at the end of this session. So the last 10 minutes of this 30-minute webinar, we will open it up to you all, to our colleagues, to ask them any questions you might have. And so keep that in mind. And without further ado, we'll just get started. Mohammed, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Then you're going to share the screen. All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. My name is Mohammed Imran, and I'm going to talk about the social media and survey text mining of COVID-19 for socioeconomic impact assessment and disaster response. So before actually jumping onto the topic, let me briefly take a few minutes to show you how the traditional disaster response looks like today. So you see two charts on your screen. On the left side, you see a chart that shows on the x-axis the time, and on the y-axis the impact and effort. And you see the red line that shows the disaster impact, and the black dots that show the community harm. And you see the blue line that represents the response. And you see when the disaster impact is high, the response is really, really low. And on the opposite side, when the response is low, the impact is already gone down. So what this leads to delayed decision making and also delayed actions from the authorities. And eventually this leads to high community harm. So at Qatar Computing Research Institute, what we try to target is something on the right side, the right side chart. So we try to actually narrow the gap between the disaster impact and the disaster and the response from the authorities. So how do we do that? This is what I'm going to present you in the next slides, but what this leads to eventually early decision making, rapid action, and low community harm. Next, please. Okay, so in order to do this, we rely on social media as a data source. So as you probably know that social media, at the onset of a disaster event, a large number of communications in the form of textual messages and images emerge on social media. And research studies show that some of these messages and images are really useful for disaster response, such as damage assessment and urgent needs assessment, and so on and so forth. So as these citizen-generated data emerge on social media, for example, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and whatnot, there are certain opportunities which actually get raised from this data. And this data has some advantages. So let's first go over different advantages of this social media data. For example, when a disaster strikes in a region, the reports that you get on social media are the first-hand reports. And potentially, these reports are posted by eyewitnesses, or bystanders, or people who got affected by the disaster. And these are quickly available, like within few seconds and minutes, these reports are available to you to be consumed and do the analysis. And you don't need to have any kind of activation. For example, in the case of satellite or other data sources like drone or survey, you need to have some kind of activation, the satellite to point to the disaster zone and so on and so forth. But in this case, as these are generated by citizens, they do it using their mobile devices and for their own reasons. And lastly, the data that emerge on social media has a huge, variety. They come in different flavors. They have a flavor of people who actually got trapped, people who need some urgent shelter, food, water, etc. Now, what this data actually can give us. So on the right side, I have listed a few opportunities out of this social media data. For example, this data can be used for early warning systems. We can develop system for event detection, right? And one can actually, after a disaster or during a disaster, one can actually try to use this data to enhance situational awareness. Like, what is the situation on the ground? How many infrastructure damage has happened and how many people got affected and so on and so forth. And although very limited signals, but there are some actionable signals in the data buried down. So we can develop systems which can actually extract those signals and inform our response. And then one can actually look at or identify hotspots. Among many different opportunities, these are some of them. Next, please. Now, at Qatar Computing Research Institute, we are developing a system called AIDR, Artificial Intelligence for Digital Response. So here I show you something that we have and we are improving, and we are still integrating a couple of different modules to this system. So basically, this is, for example, how our text processing pipeline looks like. So given this textual data from Twitter or Facebook, first of all, as you know that not all the social media data come with geolocation information. So for example, research study shows that only 1 to 3% of the tweets posted during disaster or non-disaster situations have geolocation information. They come with lat long information. 97% of the tweets don't have this information. So what we try to do, we have developed some algorithms which actually consume different metadata from these tweets or Facebook messages and we try to geolocate them. We try to infer whether this is a national level or sub-national level tweet, whether this is a country, state, county, or city. So this enables us, do national and sub-national kind of analysis. Now, the next layer shows you a couple of different data analysis components. For example, the main component, and we champion the system on this component, which is called the text classification. Now, the system is designed in a way, it combines the human intelligence and machine learning together to fulfill the information needs of stakeholders. For example, UNDP wants to deploy for an earthquake in a remote location in Nepal, right? And you never know about the kind of needs people in that remote location would have. So what we can do with the help of this system, we can actually train some classifiers on fly as we are receiving data and try to see what kind of needs, for example, people have in that specific region. So we are not really stick with pre-trained models here. We can train the new models during a disaster. Now, the second component is data clustering, where, when there is no labeled data, we try to, cluster the data and see what those clusters actually give us before actually making a classifier. Now, the third one is closer to the clustering, which is the topic modeling. And there are different techniques, for example, LDA or many other techniques. So these techniques actually try to extract topics out of the data. And this would be probably useful to get a very early understanding of your data before you start thinking about, developing an ontology for your classifier, right? And then lastly, for example, trend analysis. So we have very robust pipelines to do, to reveal the trends out of hundreds of millions of data points or billions of data points. And we are still adding more, computational components to it. And if you go further in the level, we have, for example, user type classification. So often you need to know who is actually posting this data. For example, whether the data is coming from general public or the data is coming from organizations. And most likely for response, you would be relying on data that is coming from general public. So we try to do the classification of users here. And then from the general public, you might be interested in doing the gender classification, whether this, for example, COVID particular COVID issue is more discussed or posted by female versus male and vice versa. So this allows us to do some data disaggregation. And lastly, there are different visualization components that we can use to, generate maps or topic modeling and clustering. Next, please. Now, let me show you a couple of deployments of this system. For example, this is the deployment during Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Here you see the map. And this map shows you different markers in different colors. And these colors represent different types of information that the system actually categorize using the tweets that people posted. For example, infrastructure damage, sympathy and support, donations and volunteering, and so on and so forth. So this kind of map in real time is hugely useful for many disaster response agencies to have a view of what is the situation going on as the hurricane is, passing through some areas. Next, please. Now, this is another example of this system deployment that we do with education above all and United Nations OCHA. So here the task is to use Twitter data to map education insecurity incidents in Africa and in the Middle East. Now, education insecurity incidents means attacks on students, kidnapping of students, attacks on schools, attacks on any educational entity. So what we try to do, we try to mine actually all the data posted from these regions, and we have 3 multilingual classifiers. One is in Arabic, another in French and English. These classifiers were trained over several months' effort by having, a very longitudinal data collected from these regions. And then the prediction of the system goes to this live map where you can see the circles. The blue circle shows the intensity of these incidents in a particular region, and the triangles actually show the ground truth data. This is coming from ECLID, another organization who have volunteers actually to look at news articles and other web sources But in many cases, our system actually reveal these incidents way before the news article or other media actually capture them. Next, please. Now, we also do image processing, and we do many other tasks, but let me start with this. So in this task, we try to assess the severity of damage in an image that people post on social media. For example, given this image, we try to see whether this image shows severe damage, mild damage, or no damage. So severe damage means a fully destroyed building, a non-livable house, a fully destroyed road, and mild damage is a partially destroyed infrastructure, such as a partially drivable road or partially livable building, and so on and so forth. And we have developed a state-of-the-art machine learning, computer vision architectures, which actually do this kind of damage assessment in real time as people are posting images on social media. Next, please. A slightly different task. Here we try to detect heritage sites and damaged heritage sites. This is particularly very useful task for example, organization like UNESCO, who actually try to guard these heritage sites. So here the task is given an image posted on social media. We try to detect whether this image is a heritage site image or not. And then we try to see whether it shows any damage or not. Next, please. Okay, another task here, we try to work with the British Geological Survey and EMSC, European Mediterranean Seismological Center. The task is to detect landslides. So we have deployed the system to collect all the landslide images posted all over the world and see whether we detect actual landslide incidents before authorities can actually reach out by news or TV and so on and so forth. So we use social media for that. So here the chart below shows you, for example, the red line shows you the incidents that we have captured over several years. And the blue dot shows you the events captured by NASA using their satellites. So the only automated system which is available as of today is the NASA satellite image-based system, which can detect these landslides. And our system has a way more recall compared to the precision, whereas NASA is high in precision because their system is when there is a news, they actually focus on that area and collect that. Next, please. A slightly different task. I'm showing you different flavors, different capabilities of this system or what we have developed. So here, like in the context of COVID, this is a map, actually a survey map done by Denata from July 2nd to July 14. They actually received 250,000 responses. Where they asked, the general public about the usage of face mask. And you see that Northeast and the West show high mask usage, and the Midwest and the South show low mask usage. Next, please. So what we try to do, we try to use social media again to do these three things. So first of all, we see that can we use these geotagged tweets, for example, and timestamp tweets to determine the frequency of observed face mask usage. So the task can be divided here. If we try to detect faces with mask and without mask, and try to detect whether these are indoor people indoor within their houses, or they're outdoor, which is more kind of problematic, and then detect the place type, whether these are parks and beaches, hospitals, and school. Next, please. And so we have developed some computer vision techniques to do these three tasks, and these are some very early results. For example, in the first image, it shows the system style. This is an outdoor, and this is a amusement park. And so the system also gives the the probability of saying a place. And you see the bounding boxes here around the faces. These are all red, so nobody's wearing mask. Whereas maybe in this image, this is indoor, this is a bar maybe, or a disco, and nobody's wearing mask, and so on and so forth. Next, please. No, I think I hand over to Doni for the remaining slides.
Thank you, Imran. So if I did the math right, Diana, I have around -2 minutes left to Thanks for the very exciting information. I really go very fast then, and the audience will have, and the colleagues will have the slides and can get back to Imran and me for any questions, particularly as indeed, I mean, the results per se that we will be presenting for Ecuador, for Lebanon, for Egypt, will be part of the upcoming webinars with the COs. And here we would have advanced even more in terms of the results. So what I will be presenting in 2 to 3 minutes very rapidly is the application of some of the methodologies and technologies that that QCRI and Imran have provided us support with, alongside other approaches that we are also using in data science internally as a project. So one of the main messages of Imran was, yes, the use of social media to mine actionable data for detecting and monitoring and responding to disasters. There are a lot of methodologies. We touched upon some of these. And there are a lot of focus, right, in terms of post-disaster reply and response and recovery. And also, we talked less about this with Imran as regards the use of social media for social, economic, political, environmental studies. And indeed, there's a line of research out there that tries to see how social media listening, how social media data mining can help replacing, even complementing traditional surveys. So our work basically applies to both. Part of it relates to standards, as the title of the presentation shows, social economic impact assessments of COVID on populations, on enterprises, as well as many of us know, damage assessments. Perhaps one example that mixes the two is the case of Lebanon, where we conducted recently 2 SIAs, so standard surveys. Yet those surveys contained qualitative elements that also would allow us to use text mining techniques to uncover the information in that one. And similarly, at the same time, just after the explosion, we reached out to Imran and his team, and we started examining Twitter data mining in support to the information we're having from the surveys on the ground. Before that, we had a lot, 5 months of collaboration over COVID-19 related SIAs, notably on data from Ecuador and from Egypt, knowing that, yes, Twitter data is basically publicly available, is open source and can be analyzed very freely. This is from the damage assessment. Again, Imran and his team provided us with a database of around real-time images that allow classifying damages, as Imran mentioned. From now on, I'm gonna just go fast over some of the outputs that the different methodologies can allow us to get.
Yes, if you could do that in 1 minute, that would be great.
All right. So, okay, so I will leave it because 1 minute is going to be hard. So I will leave it to the colleagues. So I will just explain. This is yet one methodology based on survey data analyses, allowing to disaggregate the results by gender. This is based on Twitter data analyses. So basically 715,000 tweets, which were mined to get to topics that are extracted about the needs of the populations that have been harmed by the explosion. These are some of the outputs of the topic modeling and cluster analyses for the two countries. Again, the detail of these analyses will come in a future webinar with the respective COs. This is very important to know, but just to give the audience over what this allows to do. This is the one of extremely powerful message here. So we went here for 5 SDGs and so face recognition, 2.3 and around 10 million tweets to disaggregate Twitter data and get some metadata, right, associated to these tweets, so as to ultimately, and let me give you the last one, which is, I think, the most exciting one, because here, one of the last ones, so that we are able to go subnational and to disaggregate the results, say, demographically, according to gender, according to race, etc. And it's extremely powerful to see that what Imran, and I conclude by saying that, has uncovered in the map in Africa regarding the education for all and the work with USARI on that we are able indeed to explain most of the peaks we see as expressed by trend analyses. Say, again, there are a lot of methodologies by qualitative data and by news mining. Thank you, and happy to respond. There will be a follow-up. Thank you, colleagues.
Over. Great. Thank you so much. So if you don't mind helping us go to gallery view, thank you. Thank you so much, Donnie and Mohammed. So many great case studies, so many great examples of things that our country offices can take ideas and run with those. Very valuable. I'm just going to go ahead and hop into the Q&A. Before I do that, I want to remind everyone that the presentation, the recording of this webinar, and the Q&A will all be posted in Teams, and it'll live on forever. So please, I urge you to go back and look at this presentation and really read the details that we weren't able to get to today. Anna, you had a great question. Would you like to pop in and ask?
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm not a techie person, so it might sound very banal, but I wonder whether the Institute or UNDP has worked on triangulating this data with data that are coming from other media, like, for example, radio or phone. I understand there might be privacy issues related to that. So I wonder whether you have experimented with combining different sources. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Anna. So we are triangulating this with data from the news, with composite indices that think tanks and national organizations provide. This was somewhat in the slide, but I had to skip them. And importantly, with survey data that we collect at the same time. That is, one component of our work is also to collect survey data over thousands of households and MSMEs, which we believe is what would allow to validate social media data, right, which is experimental. And in doing so, we are able to kind of make the case that social media can indeed allow having information, as Imran said, very fast and at the less costly, with much less cost.
Thank you. Usman, you had a question?
Yes, so yes, kind of similar. I just wanted to ask, like, what's the perspective on the privacy around social media posts? Like, are all public tweets and posts considered as available for use, mining, and analysis, or is there like any official take on that?
So yeah, probably I can answer this question. Thank you very much. This is a very important question. So with this system, we only collect public posts. We never collected any private post. We never had access to any private Twitter account. And as probably you know, that Twitter offers different APIs to collect data. Using those APIs, they have a free 1% API, then they have a Garden House, and then the Firehouse, and so on and so forth. We have we don't have access to Firehouse here, but we have a special kind of agreement with Twitter to get only public posts for humanitarian, response, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. I would love to squeeze in one more question from Nuri. Would you like to hop in?
Yes, thank you. In the case of Ecuador, did you use Twitter information also? And it was done in some specific time, or are you digging into some, trying to understand the tendency, the trends during the months, the different months? Could you explain a little bit more? You passed very quickly the Ecuador case.
Yes, we use time series data. Yes, so QCRI Imran basically provide the data and does the analysis with us on time series data. So the data on those countries that I mentioned went from roughly February, April through June, July. Lebanon, it was in August, and voila. Yes, we use time series data. Thank you.
Great. Well, we were not able to get to all of our questions, but I want to respect everyone's time. I want to remind you that all of the questions will be answered that haven't been answered will be answered by our speakers, and we will post that in Teams. And so it will live on. You can go and refer to that. But we also urge you to reach out to your colleagues. That's what these are for. These webinars are to start conversations, not just end them. So please continue the conversation. Real quick, before we sign off and say our goodbyes, I'd love to tell you about next week's webinars. Next week, we will not be having a webinar on Thursday due to American holiday, but we will be talking about monitoring COVID-19 response, examples from the Regional Bureau of Asia and the Pacific. And we will also have a webinar on reflections from evaluations, UNDP support to waste management. So look forward to that. At this point, as Jan Thomas always says, please turn on your camera so we can say hi and goodbye. And thank you again for an awesome webinar, everybody. So good to see your faces. It wasn't just 3 boxes the whole time. We had a whole community watching. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good to see this community. Thanks, folks, for hosting me.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dina, and all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.